right, guys. Thank you for joining me here today here at Red Team for this webinar on top hits of configuration for Red Team Flex. I'm Jessica. I'm an implementation manager here, and I'm also your host for this particular webinar. We'll have Sarah here. She's our enablement specialist here at Red Team. She'll be reviewing the Q&A section there in Zoom at the bottom of your screen. You should see that. If you have any questions during our webinar there, that's where you can go and ask those particular questions. We'll be either answering those questions live there or in that particular Q&A section there. All right. Oh, sorry about that. So for our particular topics today, we're going to talk about how to update your company information. We're going to go through credentials. We're going to talk about additional scope details. We're going to talk about commitment forms, progress reports, approval matrix, supplemental markups, cost codes, and master assemblies there. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and bring up my Flex database here, and I'll make this a little larger so everyone can see here. And so we'll go ahead and get started with our how to change company information here. When you start off in Flex, of course, you come up on your dashboard here, and we're on our company dashboard. I'm going to go over to the left-hand side here, configurations. Everyone won't be able to get into this particular menu here. This is based upon permissions. Generally, our admins are the ones that have the permissions to get into this area and to be able to change things as you go through and see things may need to be updating here. But the very first thing I want to talk about is changing company information such as address and phone numbers and things like that. That will be found up under controls here. And the first one we're going to go to is my company here. So if you need to update your company name here to include a LLC or anything like that, or a DBA, things like that, you can update that here at the top with my company name. Your address and phone number can be updated here below. Also, along with choosing your company logo, you would update here in these two particular areas here for to change that. Just choose the file and you'll select the file and have it uploaded here. The other place that you'll go in to update your particular company information is company divisions here. Remember, this is my training database, so we'll have a lot of information in here. But in your environment, generally, you're going to start out with just a default. So I'll scroll down here. Our default, I believe, is marked out, but I will show you what that looks like, even just selecting demo here. Select on our tools icon here and select edit. And this is where you're able to go in and actually update your legal name here, description, add in your address, and update that information also here. The very last one I want to point out about updating addresses here is updating in service locations here. This is what's going to show on bills for them to pay for you here. So I am going to just go to this service provider. So you should see service provider and your actual company name here. Selecting this tools icon, going into edit here, you'll be able to update your company name here and along with your address information and say that it's active. But this is what is going to show here at the bottom. So it's going to show up as your bill to address. So this is where you want to make sure this is updated here because that bill to address will also update. And if you have it selected as your ship to shipping materials and different things like that, that will show as that ship to address there. So you want to make sure that that's updated. Also, as you go into your projects here, these will also populate your service providers here because of those facilities and locations that you're entering in. And you have the ability to say that's a shipping location for any materials that may be getting dropped off to that job site there. Next one I want to talk about here is credentials. Credentials are very important as you go through your particular projects here. I also want to let you know you have about 15 in your particular database. I'm going to have a little bit more in my test here. We have some that are type employee, entity, and we also have an option to select project base. So those of insurance is where you need each of your subcontractors to have that for each individual project that they may be working on with you. You can change this and have it to be as an actual project base here. So I want to come in here and show you. Type, it's going to say employee. Entity would mean your vendor or your subcontractor, their particular business or company. Is this equipment or either project based, right? That credential is going to be for project based there. Then we would put in a description here. I want to point out that narrative is also required, and that narrative information is going to show up on your subcontract form there if you say that this is required here. So you would enter that information in here. You have the ability to say if you want that to be required here, to say, hey, I need them to be able to, for tracking purposes. And also, I want them to make sure we have this here on all of our projects. And the expiration date. So if it expires some type of insurance, right, it has an expiration date. You want to go ahead and select that. So whenever you upload and add those into the system, you can actually put in that expiration date here. And I'll also show you where that required comes in as we discuss commitment forms there. I do want to go down for one that is in your database here, general liability. I want to point out here that on your subcontracts, if you see that up under general liability, this information is printing out about how much they should have there on your particular job, just know that this is where you would come in and update that narrative there. Or if you don't want that narrative, let's just say, hey, I want to attach my information for general liability because it may change project for project, job for job, right? You can always do an attachment at the bottom of your commitments as you're moving to say see below and have that information listed there for general liability there. Okay. Well, that's all I have for our credentials. We'll move on to additional scope details here. So we're going to jump over to our projects area here and go to additional scope details. When your database is set up, you generally are going to have about 19 options here that are listed. But this is where you can come in and adjust that. You'll see this when you first start setting up your particular project there in your project setup area. And it's going to be up under scope details, that very first option. So number one, and I'll show you that here in a moment, but it's going to be at the bottom, scope details. So let's just jump into a test project here and I'll show you where you can find this information here. I'll just click on this one. This is one of my projects that I play around in here. Go to our project setup icon. Remember, you can get to project setup here or go to this home icon and go to your project setup there. Here, your scope details, which is number one. Give that a second to load here. We'll scroll down to the bottom and see this additional scope details. This is where the information we're going to be talking about here. Okay, go back to our configuration menu here and go to those additional scope details here. You have the ability to say, where do you want this information to be displayed? Do you want this information to be in your plan room where your owners can sign in and your subcontractors can sign in and see this information when it comes through either on that proposal or any of those contracts there? Do you want that information to be listed on that request for quotes also that goes out to your subcontractors there? Um, Very easy coming into that plus icon naming that particular field that you would like to have there on that list, along with the instructions. So those instructions are around what do you use this particular field for here? Display order. Which order would you like it to be displayed? Like I said, in your database, you should have about 19 of them. And then they're going to be numbered 1 through 19 there. So what order, what place would you like that one in? And here's that checkbox. Would you like it to be displayed in on your RFQs or inside of your plan room there? But I like to point this out because this is where you can come in and, if in your database license number isn't there, you may want that information to be added there. Cloud storage would be there for a little bit further down, but you have the ability to have your architect's name to be in your plan rooms and on your request for quotes, even your engineer information. So as you come in and you build this out and the information that you may need in that additional scope because you want that on your particular project set up there, so you can go back and see that in information there. Okay. Next is our commitment forms. This is a good bulk of information here in our commitment forms. And there's some good stuff here. First, what we'll come into is our subcontracts here in your database. You should have your purchase orders and subcontracts. And I'm going to go to my subcontract agreement here. Hit my tools icon and come into edit here. Over here where it says commitment name, at the top right corner of your subcontract, this is what shows that commitment agreement. That's going to be the name at that top right corner. But the things that I want to show you is a little bit down here. You get to actually say what you would like displayed on this particular on the form that you go through. So you can configure your commitment form here. But one of the things I want to talk about is accessibility here. So if you're using a saying a certain customer is the one that's supposed to use your this particular commitment form here, you can come in and say, hey, I want this one to be just for a customer. Come to your drop down box because it's going to select all your customers that you currently have in your database here. And you're able to select there and say, hey, I want this to just be used for ABC school district, and click add there. And now that's added just for this particular form to be used with them. If there's particular ones you have terms and agreements with that is for that particular business there, you can do that. But there are a few options. I'm going to remove that here. There are a few options. You also have company divisions, like when we were looking at the address previously. If you're using more than one company division, say you're residential or commercial there, you can say, hey, I want a certain division to use this. Or if you have an office in Georgia versus an office in Florida there, you can say that company division there that you would like to use these particular forms here. Want to point out workflow options. Generally, we go over this in our configuration call here. But this is where you can say, hey, I want to allow this for multiple commitments here, right? I want this commitment form to be able to be used for my vendors with multiple commitments. Also, you can allocate to say, hey, when I do a subcontract, my subcontract can be my vendor or whoever I'm issuing this to, my subcontractor can have multiple cost codes here. Do you require lien waivers for this? Also, do you want to close non-zero for this? In a sense of saying, hey, my subcontract it was $5,000. There's still a balance that could be paid out for $100, but I'm done with this particular project. Maybe there was a credit back or something like that. So we want to close it non-zero with that $100 balance still laying on that subcontract. You can check this here. Okay, we'll jump down to our required credentials here. So required credentials, you have one or two ways of saying how you want this to be set up here. For commit and execute, commit is saying that once I create this form, in Red Team, everything comes over as a draft. When my document is in draft status, I can't put this into committed status until I have these particular forms that are listed down below here. Which means that you won't be able to send out the form without that draft across it until you get those particular forms in if you say that they are required here. For what I see, most of my clients use execute here to say that, hey, once it's actually executed, right? I'm gonna send this out. I'm gonna let my subcontractor know I need all these individual things listed here. They're going to, when they send back my signed subcontract agreement here, they're actually going to send back their information also, this data that I need here. And I'll be able to upload that in the system along with the signed copy. So now when I upload this signed copy and execute it, I have these particular documents that I can go ahead and add with it. But you have the ability here to add the ones in this list, and these are the ones that we said that are required here. That's why that this list is not as long as the ones that are up under our credentials here, because these all the ones that was in that particular list are not required. For them to show up, you just need to check that box that we spoke of earlier that says that they are required here. If at any time you want to remove them, you can remove this or edit them here. If you want to arrange them in a different order, you can also do that. Or let's just say we want our general liability to be at the top. We would save that and it would update that information here. Click edit, and this is where you can also edit that narrative information for that particular credential here. Okay, we'll continue to scroll down here. This has a lot of information in it, but I just want to jump down to our contract language here. For your contract, you have a preamble section here, and you're able to add additional information. We just have our vendor name listed in our preamble here. Um, for our terms and conditions here, this is where in the beginning, when we did your database configuration, we would have come in and added the information to your terms and conditions. At any time throughout having this particular form, if your attorney or whoever comes in and say, hey, we need to exchange a word, we need to update this, and we need to do this here, you can come in, copy this information to a Word doc, do a find and replace, and update that particular information, and then paste this information back here. If it's just one section here, let's just say it was section 2, we need to update this verbiage here. We can copy that from a Word document and paste it here, and it will update to our particular form as long as we select save here. One of the things I want to point out here is clicking here. We have some tags, right? Throughout our particular document, you'll see some tags here that's saying, hey, we want to add this physical year in there. Some information, maybe our license number there that pulls actually from those project details there. Some information you may want to put a closeout date, information where you may want it to pull that information in from somewhere else that should have come from your project setup page there. It will pull in that information. All you would need to do is click here where it says copy. Click back in here, select where you would like to put that information, and then just paste it there. And then click save, and that information would be added right there. I'm going to just delete this. Okay, and we'll select back here. I also want to point out if there's anything that you need to add and things that are added for your to all of your particular subcontract agreements and it stays the same, you can add attachments here. You also have exhibits that can be added down here at the bottom. And I want to point out our change format. So if you go all the way down to the bottom, you may see that some of your subcontract agreements don't allow changes. But if you need to say, hey, that subcontract agreement, I may need to do a change order on that, you can select this box here. And then you can scroll down to the bottom. We have some information here. But what I did want to point out is that your plans and specs, your original plans and specs will pull over to your actual project here. And if you don't want all of your plans and specs to be pulled over, you can uncheck this particular box here. You will have the ability to add updated plans and specs, and it gives you an option to say, hey, only add new plans and specs to my particular change order there when you send that out. So that way your vendors will be able to see that. So wanted to point that out about our commitments here. Um, awesome. Are there any questions that we need to answer as we're here? Let me check
Currently, I
that.
don't see any questions.
Awesome. Well, we'll keep pushing forward, guys. Like I said before, we have Sarah here. If you have any questions, drop them at the bottom there in our Q&A, and we'll either answer them live during this particular call, or we will type a response there in the Q&A for you all. All right. Next is going to be progress reports. So this is our progress report form here. And this is what's going to show you what needs to be required here. So we have our date and scope that's required. If you're using phases, you can say, hey, I want phases to be required here. But we have authors required. You know how you go through our particular forms in Red Team and it has the orange asterisk. These are the reasons why those orange asterisks are there is because these options are required there. Saying if you want your individual superintendents or laborers to add in those particular weather conditions, you know, if your address is updated inside of Red Team there in our database there, it's going to pull those weather conditions for you there. So you can say if you want those to be required. Census, if you select the add option, it says that at least the company name is required for this particular one and workers and total hours here. But you can also select the area here to say, hey, I want to rate this company. How did they do today on the job site? Were they on time? Were they just sitting around? What was going on? This gives you the ability to rate them. And remember that your ratings are internal only. Your vendors will not be able to see those particular ratings here. Then you can give a sub scope here. But what I want to point out is task. If you require a task, your task is going to pull from your schedule, from your Gantt chart that you have in there. And then that way you can say, hey, I had this particular company on site today, and they were tasked with this particular one, and you were able to pull that information in directly from your schedule there. Activity. That's just going to be a box for you to be able to type in to say what type of activity was done there. So if they're laying down towel or anything like that, put in that actual information, what was actually done on site with them, those particular workers. We all we generally have workers in those total hours. Remember the number of workers in that particular box. And then if they worked 5 hours each, that total is 10 hours that they were on site there. I'm going to scroll down here. You have the area to say what type of workers or who all were on site that day. In your database, generally when it's first set up, you would have worker type here, and then you'll just have worker. This is where you're able to come in and say laborers, supervisors, any visitors, your project managers and owners and things like that. And then you can say, hey, do you want to track those particular hours, right? Our visitors come on site, they're just coming to look around. Your owners come in to see what the progress is there. You don't want to track those particular hours there. So you have the ability to add additional options here at the bottom. As for observations here, you'll have general safety and quality in your environment there. Um, and you're able to come in and your trash can should be blue here if you haven't used those particular areas. Ours is not able to be deleted here because we've used these, but we can always say, hey, we want them to be inactive here. Uncheck that particular box to say what needs to be there. Um, but we can always come in here and add one. So you can add an observation type, which would be this project status or either safety here. And the observation will be what falls up under that particular area there. When coming in and adding those, I'll just add this one here, click here. You can add that description and say the type here. So project status, is it going to be a heading, meeting? And you can add additional ones here for your types. Roles here, what roles should be able to fill this information in? Is this confidential to your company, right? I don't want this to be shown on my particular in my plan room there for your progress reports that are going to be pushed out there. And is this actually required? And do you want to display just the empty box there? Even if it's empty. You also have the ability here to rearrange any of this information if you want it in a particular order here. I want to jump down to our actual progress report view. So this is when you come in and you actually pull your reports there and you're able to see what that view is there. This is when you pull that report, this is what's going to come at the top here. You can arrange some sections here and all that good stuff, but this is what's going to show at the top of that particular report here. And you can say what you would like on it. Do you want your contract start date, completion date, anticipated completion date, that information displayed there? If you're utilizing any type of equipment from our equipment tab there, would you like to display that also? Okay. We'll jump out of this progress report here. And next is going to be approvals workflows here up under accounting. We have 5 different ones here for our equipment, labor, material, other, and subcontract under invoices here. We also have expenses here. In a typical database expenses, you'll only have one here at the top. Um, and in your database, you'll generally just have these 5 also. I'm just going to jump into, let me see, other here. Okay. Want to show you here, coming to our tools icon, we can come in and edit approval type. And what it's going to do, you have the ability to edit the name and things like that. So our edit here, you can edit the name, the alias, and you have a role there. And you can inactivate this if you're not going to be using this for others here. Then you have the ability to come in and I'll use our subcontract here and I'll open our matrix here. This is where you can come in and configure this. In your environment, what you're going to see is your very first one. Typically, when our databases are set up, you have your very first one here that says our project manager here, right? So our PM would be here at the top. And I'll go back to this one. This would be a better example, and I'll explain this one here. So here we have our project accountant here that says, hey, this is our project accountant. Their limit is going to be that indefinite number. Those nines here say that they can approve up to the highest amount here. Um, then it says our under limit is 3. Your under limit is saying the last person in our particular process here, which is going to be this particular sequence here. So number 3, it'll go from anything up under this particular number, they can approve up to this number here. And what it is saying, hey, at that point, it'll go down to number 3 here. In a typical setup, what you'll see is our PM here at the particular top. You'll see $5,000 limit here with under limit of 3. Then you'll see your OM, which is your operations manager here. And you'll see it generally is going to be an unlimited amount for this particular person because if your PM puts something in under 5,000, that's fine. It'll go directly to our last person, which is our project accountant. Then what ends up happening is say, okay, this is $5,001. It'll come down to our operations manager. Operations would then say, okay, this is approved, and it'll go still to that last particular person here in this particular order here. So that's what that'll typically look like. If you have other people that need to finalize this in the middle, we can add additional areas here. We would add this person as sequence 4 because it won't let us add as 3. 3 is already taken there, but we would add this person as 4 and then move those numbers around there. And then we would say what their limit is. What can they approve up to? And that under limit, right? So who would be the last approver for that particular person at that time? That's what number goes here in this particular one. Any instructions internally for using this, that's what you would put here. Um, But this particular one is very important as the last person in this particular list here is going to be, if you have any accounting integrations with us, they're going to be the last person that is going to be the final approver to push it over into those accounting integrations there. So they're going to be that stopgap, that final step there. Please let us know if you have any questions about that approvals matrix there. Next, I want to jump into our supplemental markups. And this is just saying that, hey, we have the ability to come in and mark up things for our particular projects there where it can be added to our particular budget here. When you open this in your database, typically you don't have any, but we do have the ability here at the top to add and to actually view. This icon is going to be a report of what we have currently and what we're using here. You can print here also. And you can filter this information. If I want to see all my categories here along with cost codes, if I want to say, hey, I just want a certain cost code, I can filter this information out also here. Here, I want to show you what it looks like if we go in and add here. So whatever your supplemental markup may be called, it may be some type of fee here, or maybe some type of builder's fee, general liability insurance that you charge a markup for there, for your insurance there. You can put that title here, the division. So what is the cost division that it needs to be applied to here. So if it's going to be earthwork or wherever that would actually pull up here, concrete, what division that would fall up under, you would select your division here. Then your actual cost code, enter in the actual cost code that it would affect here. Your category, is it going to be on a subcontract? Is it going to be labor there, material, along with equipment here. And if it's not one listed, you would add new here. Add a description. Oh, sorry, I missed my unit of measure. So whatever your unit of measure is here. So do you want this to be a percent of that material labor subcontract there, that direct? Or do you want it to be total or indirect cost, that percentage there? We also have total direct cost, total direct indirect cost, and we have fee here also. But if you just want that to be on the total price, you can also add that to your total price, that percentage to your total price here. So you can add that here. Then here at the bottom, it says, hey, how do you want that markup? Do you want it to be 5%, 8% on the standard price, or your cost estimate here? And what divisions do this apply to here? You can also say if you want this to be shown on your proposal here, or if you want this item to be associated with your vendor quotes also. Awesome. But this is where you would come in and add those. When you come in and add them, they would then, when you build out your project in the estimate tab there, you'll be able to see those supplemental markups listed there for those particular cost codes that in divisions that you selected. Next, we're going to go into our cost codes here. Here we have the ability to add a cost code here. This is our view icon, view that list of all of our cost codes here. So if you ever just want to wonder, hey, what are all my cost codes that I have into the system? If you're in QuickBooks, it'll let you know if that information is also linked here. So you'll be able to see. And if there are any assemblies associated with them, they'll be listed here also. And you remember, you can print this. Go ahead and click off. You have the option to filter here, active, inactive, things like that, and what division that you would like to see pulled in here. And then this is just saying, do you want to export this in a Excel spreadsheet here, or do you want to just show, or do you want to show your inactive ones here? Okay. You have the ability to add different cost codes as you go through and import any behaviors into the system here, but you just enter your cost code number here and that cost code name, select the division that it should fall up under, hit save, and then it will populate to your cost code list in the back here. Next is going to be master assemblies, last but not least. So here, this is where we can view this report also, see what master assemblies we have set up in our database here and how many items are associated with it. We can filter and we can also export and show inactive here. I want to show you what it looks like if we go into add. Um, from cost codes here, we'll select our particular cost code that we may want to add here. Let's find our flooring. We'll just select our finished carpentry here. That's fine. Um, Assembly name, we can update this to be whatever we would like here. We can update this from not being finished carpentry, but we could select that, or we can come in and add a different name if we would like. Finished carpentry, let's just say this is going to be for residential, right? Maybe we want a separate one for residential, commercial, build outs, different things like that. We can add that information here. Unit of measure, if we want to say square foot here, and quantity, we can leave that at 1 here. And I'll just search for that particular one here and hit enter, and we'll search. And we have this one. It looks like this is the one that we just made here with our square foot here. We can come into our tools icon and go to edit. And this is where we can add those additional items here for that particular. So the additional things that need to be added for like let's say if we were doing flooring, if it was towel or carpet or grout spacers, any labors, let's just say you may want to add labor or something like that, we can go in and update that information there to have that information listed here. So um, we have some here. I'll just type in new and see if we have one. Oop. Put that in here and you're able to say, hey, you want that listed? Should it be variable? We can put in 1 and we can update that as you go through your particular projects there. Or if you say, hey, generally we do a certain number of hours for that particular one for labor, it would be there. If you are using labor categories, they're saying that, hey, this our labor costs this much money, it's going to pull in that particular unit cost there per hour, and we can go ahead and add this and it'll be added here at the top. And then you would just add additional items. And then if you have a scope description, you can add that in here and you can have several of those up under this particular finished carpentry residential master assembly here. Okay. Any questions?
I don't see any in the Q&A right now, but feel free to drop them in there, guys.
Awesome. That is all I have for you all today. if we'll stick around to see if you have any questions, and so we can get those answered for you here as we're in our particular database here and go through and either, like I say, answer those live or answer them in the chat there. Awesome. Again, I want to say thank you so much for joining us today for our top hits of configuration for Red Team Flex. Thank you so much, guys, and have a great day. Bye bye.